I know every time I start one of these episodes, I say to you, I'm so excited to bring my guest to you today. And genuinely, I literally am every time. But today, there is this link between my guest and I that is really near and dear to my heart. So I'm extra excited to bring my guest today. Her name is Dr. Ashley Walker, and Ashley is a deaf pharmacist. She's also a wife, a mother of three, and an entrepreneur. She is a strong advocate for the deaf and hard of hearing community. Ashley believes that deafness should not be viewed as a disability, but rather a unique ability. Ashley launched MedMax Consulting, a company that provides medication counseling to the deaf and hard of hearing community in American Sign Language. And additionally, because she is so passionate about this, MedMax is committed to educating healthcare providers and business owners to communicate more effectively with the deaf and hard of hearing community. And for those of you who don't know, my previous career, I was an audiologist. So I spent a good chunk of my career in conjunction with the deaf and hard of hearing community. And I worked on a program in the state of California. And so this is the piece that's near and dear to my heart. When Ashley came into my life and we started talking, I was so excited to meet her and so excited to get to know her because Ashley, as I can imagine, going to school for a doctorate in pharmacy is hard enough. And then you add on the need to rely on technology and lip reading. And so you're just kind of a badass all the way around. And so I'm so thrilled to bring you to my audience and to have this conversation with you and to hear and learn more about you. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me here today. And like you said, it has been a challenge. So I
Yeah.
wanted to take an opportunity to share with you my story,
Yeah.
a little bit about me. I have a twin. My twin brother is the one who notified my parents something's wrong with my sister. She's not responding like she normally does. So he was sort of the wake up call to my parents. Well, maybe we need to take her to the doctor. And they did, and it was discovered that I didn't have any hearing, and I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And I remember specifically sitting in the hospital room with my dad, and the doctor walked in. His name was Dr. Pooh. He walked in, and he's talking to my dad, and I said, "Dad, why is he talking to you when I'm the patient?" And all of a sudden, the doctor leaves the room, and he comes back with his team. And he told my father, he said, with the type of hearing loss your daughter has, there's no way she should be talking.
Mm.
None at all. I was diagnosed with severe to profound bilateral sensorineural hearing loss, which means I'm pretty much at the bottom of the scale on a chart when it comes to hearing loss. How am I able to talk? I don't know. That's a blessing in itself. But I will say this. I know it crushed my father
Mm.
know that I was deaf because, first of all, I'm the only one on both sides of my family that's deaf. It's not genetic. I was not sick. I literally went to bed hearing and woke up deaf, and nobody
Amazing.
knows why.
Wow.
And I remember my dad telling me, he said my grandfather's told him, there's nothing you can do to change it. So you have some thinking to do. You can either embrace it or you can miss out on helping her grow into who she's called to be.
Can I just
So
say,
he
I
said he
love,
remembers sitting under a tree, and he said he went ahead and cried out all the tears he could cry.
mm,
And he made up in his mind that no matter what, whatever I put my mind to, he's got to find a way to support me. And indeed, he did. Not just my dad, my mom, and my brothers. They never told me, no, you cannot do that. It was always, okay, what do we need to do to make this work for you? If I wanted to play the drums, I played the drums. My brother, my twin, he's actually a good drum player. So he took his time to teach me the count.
Mm,
And that's how I learned to play the drums. Because most people learn how to play by ear. I don't have that option. So we just adapted the way for me to do it. It was also the first time I was separated from my twin brother. I went to a different school, if you will. The school I went to had a program specifically geared for deaf and hard of hearing children to help them thrive. And that was really the first time, kindergarten, if you will, where I realized I was different
mm,
because all of my classmates, they were deaf and hard of hearing, but they didn't speak with their voice. They spoke with their hands. That was the first time I was exposed to sign language. And my parents were afraid that if they learned sign language, that when I would come home, I wouldn't sign or talk. So my parents made the decision we're not gonna sign at home. So I was able to keep the best of both worlds. At school, it was easy for me to learn sign language because I was around it for 7 hours a day. Then at home, I was forced to use my voice if I wanted to communicate with my parents. So it was a good way of keeping me practicing as I got older. Going through school, it was challenging. Because remember, I didn't know sign language in the beginning. So while learning reading, writing, math, I was also learning sign language. And I had an aide with me who would literally sit next to me and mouth while signing so that I can learn the signs in order to keep up with work. Then as I got older, my teachers realized we can't keep her in this program. She's too smart. So they made the decision to mainstream me. And that
mm.
means I will go to a regular classroom, if you will, with an aid and learn that way. I advanced through school without an issue. But it did get lonely because when I became a middle schooler, I was the only deaf student there. I was separated from the deaf and hard of hearing program because my teacher, she saw in me, you have potential. And I want to push you beyond your potential. So she challenged me academically, and it was rare. It was very
Mm,
rare because the middle school that I attended, I was the first deaf to attend there. It didn't help mold me into who I am today because I quickly had to learn what my rights were as a deaf individual. I had to learn how to use my own voice because there was nobody else doing it for me. My parents, they helped, but little did they know that when I entered high school, I would be moving thousands of miles away. I literally closed my eyes, picked a spot on the map, and landed in Rochester, New York on a full scholarship to Rochester Institute of Technology. At that time, I didn't know that one of their colleges on their campus is actually the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. They have a huge, huge deaf program. I didn't know that until I went there. So to see other people like me in college thriving was just the right environment for me. And that really prepared me for pharmacy school because Rochester Institute of Technology, I didn't want for anything. I never had to ask for an interpreter. I never had to request for a note taker. It was already there.
Yeah.
So with that knowledge in mind, when I started pharmacy school, I was the first deaf there as well. I had
Wow.
no clue what to do, how to provide those services for me. But you see, all along growing up, each milestone prepared me for the next milestone.
Right.
Rochester set me up and said, this is how to request your services. These are your legal obligations. And armed with that knowledge, I was able to get what I needed in order to be successful in pharmacy school. It wasn't easy. Because I honestly, each semester, I started 2 weeks without an interpreter. And then if you don't know pharmacy school, it's fast paced and it's very easy to get behind. But I had an amazing team of interpreters who stuck with me throughout the entire 4 years. And they made a decision. We don't care if we get paid or not. We're not gonna let you start this semester without having access to the material. So that was phenomenal for me. Then I became a mom. I got married and became.
So your story is kind of blowing my mind. And first, I just want to walk back for a second. And like, if I could put my arms around your grandpa and hug him, I mean, what a wise man to say, look, you can either live in misery about what's going on or step up to the plate and be her family. That's what it sounds like to me. And they really, really did. And it's an incredible, particularly coming from my background, your story is not typical. Families often are so overwhelmed, they don't know what to do. And so I just love your family. It's amazing. And so I can imagine as you're experiencing this journey along the way, you had this support at home, but as you're moving through this process, school to school to school to pharmacy, where were you running into, oh, I should be doing something else, or people had expectations of you that you thought you needed to live up to? Where were you shooting on yourself in this process?
Well, I hate to say this, but it's true. The expectation of someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, let alone any other unique ability, whether
Mm,
it's blindness or wheelchair bound, the expectation is you're not going to amount to anything.
yeah.
And I can remember the very first time I was told that. I was in fifth grade.
Oh,
I was in
wow.
fifth grade, yes. And I was preparing to test for middle school because you had to test to get into this middle school because they had a magnet program. And I was going to the magnet program. And a teacher I had specifically told me, you're wasting your time. Deaf people are not smart enough
Oh,
to have an education. The only thing you will amount to is sitting at home, popping out babies, and collecting checks.
oh my God.
Yes,
Oh, who says that to a fifth grader? Who
right.
says that to anyone? Oh, holy
And
Toledo.
I remember talking to my dad. I said, collecting checks. I didn't know anything about collecting checks. And they
Yeah.
was talking about Social Security. I didn't know
Yeah.
what that was.
Yeah.
My dad said, well, you have a choice. The world is cruel. You can either fall victim to it, or you can just get up and brush off what they said and just prove them wrong. So I said, okay. So every negative thing that has been thrown my way, I just use that as fuel to the fire to keep me going because I want people to know a unique ability doesn't define what you're capable of doing. It's your heart and your mind that determines what you're capable of doing. How far are you willing to go?
Yeah.
What are you willing to do to reach that goal? My hair loss, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Who cares? I can't hear like the typical person does, but it's not stopping me from breathing. It's
Yeah.
not stopping me from dreaming. It's not stopping me from doing anything I want to do. It's not keeping me from learning.
Yeah.
Nothing does that. So I just had to push forward. And that has always been my reminder because I do get frustrated. I do get tired. But I remember my why. I'm not doing it to prove anybody wrong. That's just a plus. I'm doing it because I matter. I'm human. I have dreams. I have aspirations. And nobody's going to do it for me but
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. The majority of people that I talk to on this show take on that societal expectation and are really bogged down by it. But you actually seem like there is this anti should naturally in you, which is so incredible. Like your makeup, because you said this wasn't a genetic hearing loss. So let's just say your makeup, whatever it was, left you waking up one day with no hearing. But there's something in that makeup that also makes you really fierce. And it's so interesting. But before we hit record, we were talking a little bit, and I was asking you about when was there this transformation point? And you had this very visible reaction. So now I'm extra curious about this, because the way I had worded it to you in our pre-recorded conversation was, when did you know you were living under the shoulds? So now I'm very curious about what that was like, because I don't know now if you were living under shoulds. I think you were kicking the door down when the shoulds showed up. Maybe that shifted. Maybe there's something else. So now I have to know about, what was this transition point that you had this strong reaction to when I asked you about it before we hit record. So what was that? What led up to it?
Actually, the birth of my son.
Okay, let's go there.
It did. To be quite honest, after my journey with pharmacy school and working, I was very discouraged, and I was like, man, I'm tired. And I was pregnant at the time. And unfortunately, my son decided to make his appearance at 25 weeks.
Oh boy.
Yes. He decided to make his appearance then, and I was actually in the hospital. They were gonna keep me until I delivered him, and he wasn't due until May.
Wow. Okay.
I had been in the hospital. I went in the first week of January. And then come February 15th, he was like, I gotta get out of here. My husband was home painting the nursery. And I'll never forget the day. They were doing daily ultrasound, checking the cord flow. And the nurse didn't have to say anything. I just saw it on her face.
Mm.
And next thing I know, the specialist is coming, and he goes, we have to take him today. And I said, okay, so they started me on some medication, but this particular medication, it blurred my vision.
Oh no.
And I already can't hear. It blurred my vision. And I can make out shadows of people coming in the room, but I can't hear you and I can't see you. And once the medication stopped, my vision came back. And the doctor goes, are you ready? And I'm like, for what?
Yeah.
I have no clue what happened. And that's when my OB, he realized the interpreter is not here yet. The interpreter walked in just as they were wheeling me for my emergency C-section.
Wow.
But it meant the world to me that he remembered that. And he said, I don't care what the interpreter looks like. Just make sure she's in this room because she deserves to know everything that's happening.
Absolutely.
After the birth of my son, he was in NICU. The fighter in me woke up again.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized what my calling was. And my son reminded me of that. Being a pharmacist and a mom is not a good combination. I would argue with the doctors about his medication because we know too much about the medication. And I remember going toe-to-toe with his doctor. And finally she goes, what are you, a pharmacist or something? And I said, I am. They had no clue. They literally thought, oh, she's deaf.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have any knowledge. We can just do whatever and whenever. That hurt me. And I said, I can't keep quiet anymore. I cannot. Because what happens to the next mom that comes in and she's deaf?
Yeah.
And she's hard of hearing, but she doesn't have the knowledge that I have as a pharmacist. No. That does not exclude you from communicating with the parent who's deaf about the needs and the health of their child. Because at the end of the day, I have to make the decision.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to communicate with me the same way that you communicate with my husband, who is hearing, it's a problem. And it's got to stop. I've got to get people to look at the individual as the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. Their unique ability for a moment. because their unique ability doesn't make decisions for them.
Right.
It doesn't. But keep in mind, how can I adapt to meet their needs so that they can have access to everything in order to make an informed, well-rounded decision? So that's when I woke up and I was like, no, it's time to roll my sleeves up, dig deep, and raise my voice because it needs to change.
Yeah. So there's this moment or this over this period of time while your son's in there where you were like, this is not working for me. This is not
What?
okay. And is that what sparked the idea to start working in your own business, to start advocating for deaf and hard of hearing people?
Yes, it is because I was even at that time I was a retail pharmacist, and in my area there's a large deaf and hard of hearing community, and seeing how my colleagues would ignore the questions and the needs of this customer base, I was like, no, 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 no. You make everything accessible for someone that speaks Spanish. You make it accessible for those who are blind by giving them Braille. But what about those who communicate using American Sign Language? What are you making accessible for them?
Right. Right.
So that was my key to say, okay, I'm gonna step up. But I'm only one person.
But someone has to start it. It has to
Right.
start somewhere. And I want to acknowledge, I want to back up for a second that I said deaf and hard of hearing people. And I know that is not the correct terminology. We want to put the person first. So I just want to acknowledge that I heard that come out of my mouth. And I want to say you are working with people who are deaf or hard of hearing in that community. I want to be very conscientious about that. So tell us a little bit about your business. Just tell us quickly about your business and what you do within the business.
Okay, so as I mentioned, one of the biggest issues was access for deaf and hard of hearing members in getting explanation or a clear understanding of the medication. So what I started doing, I started out small. We have the Deaf Action Center, which is a community-wide location where all of the deaf and hard of hearing community gather for different resources or help with day-to-day living on how to get access to things. And I will host brown bag reviews.
Love it.
So what I do is I allow them to reach out to me and I break down pharmacy language using American Sign Language, which is what they understand.
Right.
So I do that. And then on the flip side, because I've had so many colleagues reach out to me, especially with the release of over-the-counter hearing aids,
Oh, yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, how do we interact with this community? And I'm like, it's not that hard. So I teach them about resources that are available in their area because it varies across the nation. It does.
Right. Right. Right.
But the foundation is the same. You just have to know where to look for those resources. I've partnered with several other organizations and companies where I can refer you to their products that will assist you in communicating effectively and efficiently with the deaf and hard of hearing community. And I educate, I host speeches and speaks about how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the right way or the wrong way to communicate with someone? For example, you don't want to talk to someone who has hearing loss with a mask on. But because we're in a pandemic, there are ways around it. And many people are not aware of those ways. So I bring awareness to that and educate about that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You said when you're talking to the other business owners that it's not that hard to communicate. I will advocate for your services, though, someone who hasn't thought about it, who doesn't know where to start. So maybe once you have the tools, it's not hard, but we need people like you to educate folks and keep that information rolling so that it isn't hard, that it is just a normal part of communication when someone comes into your business who needs a specific type of communication. Like you said, we advocate for people in other languages, we advocate or we have resources for them or for the blind. This just needs to become another form of communication, not some outlier big, overwhelming, can't handle it pathway, but just part of this is how we communicate with this population. And I love that's what you're doing. So I want to wrap this up. Here's my summary of Ashley. Badass, should door kicker downer. It's like, you just are amazing, and your family is amazing the way they supported you. And I hear you got sort of worn down in your career, and then this incident happened with your son that lit a fire. It's an incredible story. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I understand if my listeners want to come and find you, which I think they will, because you want to get to know Ashley. She's pretty amazing. LinkedIn is your primary location, and you're at linkedin.com/Dr. A. Walker, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Correct.
We will put that in the show notes so people can come and find you. And I mean, just, it does not matter if you are not living in a deaf or hard of hearing community. If you don't know anybody in a deaf or hard of hearing community, Ashley is an inspiration. And maybe it would be helpful for people in the hearing world to get a little bit more familiar with it too, frankly, right? So
You will be surprised at how I can almost bet you that you have come in contact with someone who's deaf or hard of hearing. It's not a visible unique
right,
ability. It's not.
right. And there's no beam of light shining. There's no
Right.
right. It's one of those things that you just don't notice if you're not paying attention. So
Right.
I
Right.
hope people hear this and have more awareness. And then if we do have people who are in the deaf or hard of hearing community, or have family or friends, that they send them your way for this amazing opportunity that you're providing. So Ashley, thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for using your platform to shine light on such a unique community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And to those of you who are listening, thank you so much for joining us.